Every competitive game has tiers, whether you like it or not. While most people look at tiers as what's the best and what's the worst, really a tier list is just kind of a snapshot of what players think is good or bad in the game at the time. Now, the expectation would be that characters on the lower end of the list would be not very popular, and characters on the higher end of the list would see a lot of play, right? Every now and then there'll be a character that people agree is top tier that doesn't seem to see a lot of play. And today we're talking about probably the best example in Guilty Gear Stive of this, Leo Whitefang. Now, when competitive players say that some uncommon character is top tier, especially consistently, there are usually two pieces of pushback that the player base gives them. So one is, if the character is so good, then why does nobody pick them? And the other is, if the character is so good, then why does nobody win with them? But before answering those questions, I want to take a look at what Leo is actually good and bad at. And the big thing here of why people consider him to be so good is that he's kind of good at everything. So typically, I split fighting games into 4 phases: neutral, offense, defense, and knockdown, and Leo is very good at all 4. His neutral is top class. He has a very good dash block. This just got nerfed in Season 4, so that if he taps back, then his dash block is shorter, where in prior versions of the game, his dash block traveled very far. Despite this though, I still think he has a very strong dash block. Then comes his guard point. So unlike most characters in this game, Leo has neither a far slash that's disjointed, nor a 5H that's disjointed. And the reason for that is what he gets in exchange. So for starters, he gets a unique Gatling system with his slashes, where he can go back and forth freely between his S and H buttons. This thing is good for pressure, of course. The other reason is for his neutral. By holding either 5 heavy or far slash, he goes into this guard point animation. Swinging into it activates the guard, and the attack is pretty good. This attack cannot be low profiled. And if a character does not have a fast, long-reaching low, this move can be quite hard to deal with. For starters, you can hold the armor indefinitely, but also this move received some buffs since this game's launch. In the October patch of Season 1, the developers reduced the recovery, making the follow-up attack very powerful. Now later, in Season 2, the developers went further and added armor to the move, from frame 1 to frame 9. These 2 changes make the move not only a tool for offense, but also hard to whiff punish, and because of that, it became a very hard move to deal with for some characters. Next up is 2K. His 2K alone is pretty decent. It's big and very active, but combined with his dash, he gets a very powerful preemptive tool and whiff punish tool, with a reasonably safe cancel option with 6K. Having this cancel option available gives him a very powerful knockdown situation that gives him his win condition instantly. The back turn stance, Brynhilder, which you can access with a special move. This stance is called Brynhilder stance or back turn stance, and remember this because we're going to revisit it later. Next we have to talk about his anti-airs, of which he has 2. One is his jab, and the other is his 6P. His jab is also top class in my opinion. Good height, very low recovery, and very active. A universal change in Season 2 subtly buffed this normal, giving it a small amount of extra hit stun if it hits counter hit. In addition, there is no air tech in Strive, so he's able to reliably get a good knockdown into Brynhilder stance, the win condition. With air dashes being slower in Guilty Gear Strive than the previous Guilty Gear games, this type of low commit anti-air is very powerful. But he also has the universal anti-air 6P. Normally, this move was small, but difficult to whip punish because of how fast it recovered. And on top of that, it was pretty safe on block as well. They nerfed this move recently so that it has more recovery, but it is still a strong anti-air in my opinion. Finally, he has a strong projectile, specifically his S Fireball. Now in prior versions, this had quite a bit of recovery, so it was an easy IED whip punish. This is a somewhat recent change, but the small reduction to the recovery of his S Fireball made it go from a relatively simple IED punish to one of the best anti-zoning moves in the game. All these things help Leo build quickly from neutral, which is a big part of why he's good, as meter is a huge advantage in this game. Now next up, his offense is also amazing. So Leo has 2 main modes of offense. His front stance is basically standard offense with the exception of him having a unique Gatling chain that we touched on before. In the context of block string offense, it means he could build meter and sneak in opportunities to either take turns back or easily set up space traps. There is counterplay as his Gatlings have unique gaps that other characters do not have, but in the end is still considered strong since he has the option to stop or peel off. Now the shining star here is Brynhilder, the back turn stance. Now in back turn, he cannot block, but he can do many things in exchange. So first off, he can dash through opponents, and he gets a suite of new normal attacks. If he presses 2-2, he can exit the stance, or he can exit by using different special moves. For 2 of his special moves, Turbulence, which is typically a combo ender for him, and Blitzschlag, which is an exclusive move to Brynhildr, he can choose to hold the button he uses to do the attack to stay in back turn. He also gets a set of new normals as well. So his punch is not a tool seen often ground vs ground, but this move is a powerful anti-air. Also, this shares a property he has in front turn stance where he can go backwards between his punches and kicks. His back turn kick, first off, is a fast low that is also plus, and it's also dash cancelable, which, as a reminder, can go through opponents if close enough. Since it's advantageous, it's pretty good to go into itself, and very importantly, it goes into his fast overhead. His back turn S is an all-around strong poke. Stance canceling this move leads him at a very advantageous +5. This means that if he's point blank, he could do a very powerful mix-up, where he either goes overhead by chaining into H, or stance cancel into low. This also becomes a strong approach tool because of the buff he got in Season 4 that lets him attack out of his dash and Brynhildr. His heavy slash is a very fast overhead that also beats throws, and this is because he's airborne. Like the back turn slash, if he stance cancels his move, he is advantageous. And last but not least, we have his dust. Now, his dust is actually a big shield, and this move is very strong. This move reflects projectiles, like Zato's Drunkard Shade, and it has a catch animation, like Baiken's parry, including the addition of a dash cancel on far parries. Now, unlike Baiken's parry, Leo has the ability to PRC his parry, which means he could do a parry and cancel it in case he's wrong. In the case that you do catch, he's fine and it'll work. But in the case that it whiffs for some reason, you just PRC. Remember that this moves on one button as well, so it's a little bit easier to react to things with this than Baiken's parry. The aforementioned Blitzschlag can only be done in back turn, but if the opponent blocks it, he gets a 50-50, evidenced by this black beat combo here saying that I could have blocked as this is a guard crush move. As it is a guard crush too, you have the added benefit of the no throw protection. He does also have a command grab in back turn, but this is generally seen as a kind of meme move, so people don't use it very much. But low key, that means that you should probably expect this move to be buffed in the future, since Arxis likes buffing moves that people don't use. Imagine buffing Leo in 2025, eh? Now, the combination of advantageous lows, fast overheads, recent buffs let him cancel his dash into back turn normals, make back turn quite strong. And he has 3 main ways of entering it. The main way I've been showing in these examples have been with Turbulence. In prior versions, this is pretty much a combo ender, and it's nice because you get a mix-up right away of a high or low. In Season 1 though, this move was a hard knockdown, so he could use this to 4-way you or at least do a really messed up left right. In the current version, he has the option of using this more freely because they added pushback to the move, making it less punishable. Now another way you can enter back turn is by using Zweit. The whole name is,
Zweit's Kalt's Gestober.
This move runs to the opponent quickly to knock them down. This move itself is slightly advantageous on block, so if an opponent does block it, he's able to start his offense. Now there is counterplay to this move. He can be thrown out of this attack, but often what you'll see Leo players actually do is they'll use a higher block stun attack, something like his sweep, or this move,
Erst's Kalt's Gestober,
and then do a fast Roman cancel to guarantee it. In the beta, this move was also a hard knockdown, so he could do the same style of crazy mix-ups as off of Season 1 Turbulence. And Leo players are pretty mad that this was taken away. The final way he can enter is by just throwing you. His throw immediately puts you into back turn. The position he puts you in is quite advantageous, and it's one of the best throws in the game. His good offense ties into his good knockdown. Only a handful of characters have meterless reversals in this game, and if you're lacking a meterless reversal, back turn is much stronger against you. As I mentioned before, he has a lot of ways to mix you up between fast lows, overheads, and running through you. And with good hit confirmability, you either get stray pokes into back turn, any throw you get leads into back turn immediately, or he has the option to wall break quickly using wall assault and up his resource. And his defense is good as well. His reversal has been good since launch and has been nerfed multiple times because it was so good. Along with it being a flash kick, enabling fast reactions to things that other characters would have to do inputs for. A common example being Ramothal's close slash into sword toss. Now you can 6P this, but doing this is a guess. If you try to actually react to Ram doing the sword toss with 6p, it's very likely that you will not actually get there in time, and you either block the sword or you'll get hit by the sword. A DP would be helpful because it's frame 1 invincible, but you have to do the input quickly. A good way of doing this would be to just buffer the DP. Since Leo's DP is a flash kick, it is essentially a one button DP if you think about it, because if you're charging, you only have to press up and a button, which makes this far easier. You also have the added benefit of, usually if you miss the DP, you will simply block instead. On top of this, he has a pretty good HP pool, both pre-Season 4 and post-Season 4. Season 4 being notable because they upped everyone's HP. How much this actually matters depends on who you talk to, because they also up the damage of a bunch of characters. That's a discussion for a different video though. And even more, before Season 3, he was a heavyweight, and each character had a different weight, so he was a small character that was a heavyweight, so he was surprisingly hard to combo. And little things like this contribute to his defense, because you'd have problems actually comboing him if you could hit him. With all these advantages, what are his actual weaknesses then? Well, for starters, his full screen presence is actually pretty limited. His S fireball actually does not travel full screen. His H fireball does, but it's pretty slow to start up. That being said, this is not too big of a weakness in my opinion. Again, pre-Season 4, his dash block was by far one of the best in the game because of how far he went. And it's still really good now. So you could just move into a range where he can start acting, and you can do charge moves into a dash pretty easily in this game. All it takes is buffering a dash into your S boom and it'll reach full screen. On top of that, while these moves don't hit full screen, he has fast lunging moves that hit at almost full screen, notably his sweep. The other weakness, which is something that I mentioned earlier in the video, is that neither his slash nor his heavy slash are disjointed, which can create some funky situations and weird move interactions. With all these strengths and so few weaknesses though, why is he so uncommon at top level, or any level of the game? A lot of people would say things like people don't play the character because they're boring, or people don't play the character because the character is overrated. And if we think about the two questions that people tend to ask of why a character is rare despite people saying the character is very strong, Leo has no shortage of good tournament results in this game. So in my opinion, I think it's mostly that a lot of high level players in this game are looking for the next Happy Chaos. So a strong character that overall solves many matchups and requires their opponents to have a high level of knowledge and the right character to even fight them in the first place. Now, I didn't really mention this as a weakness for Leo because I don't think of it as a weakness, but with this idea in mind, it will show you kind of why a lot of people don't want to play him at a high level in tournaments, despite people usually agreeing that he is very strong. A lot of his pressure has gaps. So you might remember this string from earlier on in the video. So every r/slash into 5H has a gap, which means with a well-timed backdash or a reversal, you can end his pressure just like that. The aforementioned 2k 6k, the strong dashing poke into safe normal. His 6k is -4, so it's very uncommon for characters to be able to punish this. Baiken is in the group that can, but because of how her jab in the 6k works, she's usually not close enough to get a combo. People who don't have 4-frame buttons usually try to instant block the 6k, or you could use your 4-frame into Roman cancel in order to punish. The point is, many of his common tools have counterplay. Backturn stance has a bunch of gaps as well. His fast flow into overhead does have a gap that you can mash on. There are many more examples of this, but the idea is while things have counterplay, he has counters to the counters, so you're having this back and forth with your opponent. Depending on what type of player you are, you might see this as a strength or a weakness, and you may be comfortable with it or not. While people acknowledge Leo's strengths, a lot of people would lean towards Happy Chaos instead because, especially in earlier versions, there wasn't a lot that most characters could do about anything. And it takes a certain type of player to be comfortable with being wrong with a character that has all these gaps in their strings. A player who sees this as a weakness will think that interacting with people is annoying, people are constantly getting out of stuff, they feel like they have to go out of their way in order to target things with Leo so that they can get hits. A player that embraces this will focus on the conditioning and being like, you could be really tricky with Leo and make people really doubt themselves. And while I think the character is really good, I can definitely acknowledge that like not everybody has that aspect in their playstyle. It's the same reason why you don't see a lot of people play characters like Soul, for example, where you just have to be cool with throwing somebody and take a bunch of damage if you're wrong. So that's like the main reason why I think you don't see Leo too much at top level. But let me know what you guys think. As usual, if you have any questions or comments, definitely feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I do stream most days on Twitch at twitch.tv/LordKnight. And, you know, we hang out, we do a bunch of stuff. We also record LordKnight Chronicles videos there. And that's my second YouTube channel, so go check that out. If you're interested in Guilty Gear coaching, I do coaching on Medify. And recently I brought back my Patreon, so if you want to support the channel and support some future projects I'm going to be working on, feel free to go over there. Like and subscribe if you guys feel like it, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.